Post-election, there are many people that are frustrated with the options that are on offer. Certainly a third of the country was the only people who directly voted for the Prime Minister, and less than a third voted for the Liberals, and everyone else did something with their preferences. Most people gave their preferences to Labor, which is why they get to say, look at the scoreboard. But something has happened since the election that really matters. For as long as she has been in and around Australian politics, I've been talking to Pauline Hanson. I remember in the lead up to the 2016 election, remember way back when Malcolm Turnbull was saying she has no place in the Australian Parliament, oh, blah, blah, blah. Well, she, of course, blasted her way through to the first of her two, so far, Senate terms. And some people have come and gone, but the big news tonight is that One Nation's support is surging. It's surging in lots of different groups, and I'll get into all of that later, but it is now starting to make headline news. You see, I think something is starting to happen here, not just that people are moving their vote and starting to say One Nation. It's too easy to turn around and say, oh, well, that's just a whole bunch of disaffected Liberals who'll go back to the Liberals anyway. Yes, they might when it comes to their preferences, and as always, for as long as we've been sitting here, I've been talking about preferences matter. But I think that people are going to make a permanent break when it comes to the Senate. In the same way that the left of Australian politics has always had the Greens and the Labor Party, One Nation and the Liberals have had this relationship where sometimes, occasionally help each other out, and then sometimes the coalition will try to wipe One Nation out. One Nation tried to do their best when it came at the last election to preferences. But I think now it is going to be a scenario where people are going to vote one upstairs for the more pure version of politics. Because the reality is, to get a spot in the Senate, you don't need 50 plus one. You only need 14% of the vote. And One Nation, according to these polls, looks like they'll be able to repeat what they did at the last election. Remember, at the last election, they had 6.4% of the vote. Essentially, preferences from the Liberal Party meant that they were able to get senators up in Queensland, in Western Australia and in New South Wales. So 2 from Queensland plus the other 2, 4. Huge. But what about the poll that came out this week? They've basically doubled their numbers since the election, now 13%. Now, if they had a primary vote of, let's say, even 10%, with the preferences that would come from Libertarians, if Clive Palmer has another crack, but certainly Libs and Nats, there'd be almost guaranteed of a Senate spot in every single state. And that means slowly but surely we are going to get to the stage where there will be potentially as many members of the upper house that are One Nation as there are the Greens. Hallelujah. Apart from anything else, the handbrake on governments that are too far to the left or not enough in the real lane that traditional supporters of the Liberal Party have been, this is a huge development. Let me explain partly how some of this goes. And by the way, according to the latest opinion polls that was published in the Turnbull Times, The Guardian, done by the Essential organisation, One Nation is now out-polling the Greens around the entire country. This is amazing to have a look at here. Now, the Greens ever so slightly off, but look at that number, again, basically double for One Nation. Again, it's an extraordinary result. Now, are we anywhere near an election? No. 2.5 years away. Will this number slightly move around? Yeah, probably. But I don't know that it's going to start to fall back to 6 anytime soon. I think it's going to hover a little between, say, 8 and 12, as opposed to, say, 4 and 6. Now, we spotted this trend in the lead up to the election. I think this is going to be something that's important to note and have a look at. Why? Because let me show you where the vote's coming from. In all categories of age, One Nation support is up according to this poll. Yes, they do have some voters, 18 to 34, 7%. 35 to 54, no major change there, but again, double digits. But have a look at that surge of 10% to go from 8 to 18% with people over the age of 55. Again, basically half of the electorate under the age of 50, half of the electorate over the age of 50. So if you've got numbers that are above 10% over the age of 50, you are starting to get into that scenario. And again, I don't know if it's a mirage, but I have a feeling it's not. Because I think regardless of what you do with your vote downstairs, I think people are going to make a vote for what they truly believe in because they know there is no wobble when it comes to One Nation. Now, yes, is the Liberal Party the direct loser out of this? Yes. In fact, in the 55 plus, the Liberal vote is down 11%. So is there an expectation that somewhere that will travel back? Sure. But I think it's going to travel back via preferences rather than primary support. Now, again, those that are downstairs, you can't really chase One Nation's vote because, remember, they're not going for 50%, they're going for 14% to be able to guarantee a Senate spot. So why can't the right side of Australian politics do what the left has done for generations, which is, if you want the hardcore, you can vote for the Greens. The watered-down version is Labor, but they always help each other. Why not the case for One Nation if you want the hardcore there and the flow back to the Libs and Nats? Interestingly as well, once you start to break this up by gender, you again start to see where this is coming from. So there has actually been the most significant support among women. So put simply, women over the age of 55 are the biggest drivers in this surge of almost doubling of the support for One Nation. Pauline Hanson was on with my mate Chris Kenny a bit earlier this afternoon. No doubt, revelling, knowing the reality. Look, things can come and go, but geez, they're having a moment. More senators than they've ever had before and doubling in the opinion polls.
They're fed up with the major political parties. They're fed up with the Liberal National Party of not delivering for them. So I will keep driving it. I will keep putting pressure on them. I will bring out the policies.
I love her. Always have. Always will. To continue to talk about it. I love Pauline Hanson, honestly. So much so we've got the little doll behind us, right? All right. Now, speaking of polls, can we get to this here today? In and around old mate Airbus Albo. Well, as you know, Airbus Albo is back in the country, gracing us with his presence, which means we are all the luckier for the bloke who spent 17 of the past 30 days outside of the country. Wow. And what about the tickets this bloke's got on himself, where the Prime Minister's now saying that he contributed to the Gaza peace deal? Why? He's got no relationship with Netanyahu, and he's got barely a relationship with the US President. Please. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Of course, Australia was just so happy to have him back. Why? I mean, we had to share him with the rest of the world, and wasn't the world wowed by his virtually empty performance at the United Nations? Well, again, not great news for the Prime Minister, and this happens for every Prime Minister who starts to fiddle and fart around outside of their actual responsibility. The number of people who think the country's headed in the wrong direction, up, way up. In fact, guess what? Basically where it was kind of at the start of the year, half of the country believing we are in the wrong place. Why? Because they were fooled. There is a bit of buyer's remorse inside these polls. It doesn't automatically go to the Liberal Party, but it's certainly coming off Labor. This is interesting. This is important. This is what we already know. Also, in terms of the number of people and how they feel about the future, are you very optimistic, quite optimistic? That's the blue. Are you pessimistic or quite pessimistic? Well, pretty obviously there, we're dealing with a damn big number, 34% to 20%. Oh, but that's okay. The Prime Minister was able to bring his own beers to his mate from the Labor Party in the United Kingdom, right? Well, Australians not all that impressed. Why? Because our life here is not going well. And the group that knows it best are the people who've lived here the longest. Have a look at this breakdown here of optimistic versus pessimistic. Now, ironically, over 55s, well, they're pretty optimistic, but they're also the most pessimistic because they've been around for a while. Young people obviously being told the whole planet's going to explode because of climate change, but that's okay. We're going to fix 72% of 1% of the world's problem, all this garbage. And the people that are trying to pay their house off who have now realised the Treasurer told lies when he told you there was going to be 5 interest rate cuts. Well, of course, that's not happening because, remember, they faked it on inflation. But also in terms of people who are a little frown-mouthed about the future, what about the Greens? What a fun group they are. Well, funnily enough, if your central belief is that we're all going to be burnt to a crisp, well, guess what happens? You end up with the best part of, 60% of their supporters believing that they are very pessimistic about the future. One more thing on polls before I do move on, and I will move on. When we talk about immigration in this show, racist, terrible, you can't talk about it. Oh, you're talking about the nationalities. No, never. How many times do we have to say it? How many times do we have to point to the little asterisk that is about the number of people that are coming, not of what colour and what faith and all the rest of it? The reality is that the infrastructure is not good enough. Does anyone think their local council is nailing it on potholes? Does anyone think their state government is nailing it right now on ambulance waiting times? Does anyone think that the federal government is nailing it right now when it comes to the infrastructure that they fund? Well, unsurprisingly, despite the fact that the government has said that they're doing something to pull back on migration, those who care about this issue are, guess what? The majority of the country. Because again, this opinion poll is taken by people working for The Guardian. Yet when asked if the current levels of immigration are too high, 53%, a majority, say yes. I'm not sure who the 7% are. Maybe these are the people who work for Treasury or the people who help take care of the population Ponzi scheme. Who are the 7% who say that it's too low? The majority of Australians have a problem with how many people are coming into the country. It is not racist, it is just fact. And guess who knows best on this issue? The people who've been here the longest. 66% of people over the age of 55, they know in their bones that the numbers are out of whack. The people who've lived enough of a life, 35 to 54, they too know by a majority. So thankfully the polls get to catch up with what you and I know each and every night, of each and every week, of each and every month, of each and every year. But we will continue to plough along and enjoy the fact that they catch up, including the One Nation surge, and they all freak out about it in Canberra. Couldn't care less. Now, obviously, I've got a couple of kids in primary school. You may well have kids or grandkids that are in that or higher, but all of us care about the future. It's not just something owned by the left, it's owned by everyone. Common sense people, the far left, the far right, no matter, we all care about the future. And can you believe there is a new edict which is coming out that is going to affect the way teachers address kids? Because, goodness forbid, you're called boys, boys and girls, girls. Now, yes, there is a chance, statistically obvious chance, that somewhere in some school there is someone who is dealing with some difficulties and maybe doesn't want to identify that way or the other. But 99.9, they are boys or they are girls. Oh, but remember, we must be very modern here. Well done to the Daily Telegraph. Darcy Fitzgerald getting their hands on this. Forget boys and girls, teachers are told to watch their gendered language in a push that some call inclusive, others indoctrination. I'm pretty sure I know what you think here. Cherubs, friends, funsters are some examples of the non-gendered language creeping into Australian classrooms. But collective terms like boys and girls, and even seemingly the non-productive guys, are apparently out the door in the push for teachers to use more gender-inclusive language when addressing their classes. How many years in a row do I tell you the same story? NAPLAN, down. Funding up. Remember the whole BS and battle from 2007 when Gillard was the Education Minister, Rudd was the Prime Minister. Oh, and we're going to up it all and Gonski and we're going to take care of the little kids and all that garbage. Since then, it's been hundreds of billions of dollars that have been spent, state and federal, on education, and the results get worse. May I posit a possible reason is because organisations like the Teachers Federation are garbaging on about this, not trying to work out how to be able to get more power, say potentially from state government, to pull their kids back into line. The Telegraph was able to find something that is on a portal for the Teachers Federation, rainbows and all, about gender-neutral class greetings. Let's zoom in at the top here, okay? Have you ever stood in front of a class and said, "Okay, guys, eyes to the front," or something similar? While most teachers have moved away from saying phrases like, "Okay, boys and girls," there are times when we may accidentally be addressing the whole class or groups using gendered language. God forbid! They use the term guys. And remember, this ain't just fruity gear that's being thrown out by a teachers' union. Remember the bloke they pinned a medal on as Australian of the Year? He was running around telling groups of adults working for companies that to walk into the room and say, "G'day, guys." It's exclusionary. Fair income. Again, the great Australian pronouns are mate and darl, okay? And you can use them with boys, girls, they, them, because they're terms of endearment. Referencing 30 kids as a gang or guys does not exclude all of the little girls, or in some very minute, but still, I'll be sensitive about it, occasions. Does it really do someone's head in to be referred to in such a collective fashion? Of course not. But someone's job, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, this crap. A couple of other examples that come up about some early basics. Use terms, rather than guys or gang, class, people, grade level students, everyone, everybody. Hello, everybody. Don't say, good girl, good boy. You've got to refer to them as experts, intellectuals, learners, epic humans, awesome humans, future leaders, change makers and superstars. Again, can I just go back to my first principle here? You can fiddle with this garbage when we don't have the same story every year for a generation. That NAPLAN, high school, primary school, goes backwards all the time. And I know that I have this crazy idea that the education system is supposed to be about the intellectual growth of your child, when we all know a big dollop of it is to make sure that the right kind of people come out of the system, that the right toddler comes out of childcare, that the right little person comes out of primary school, that the future right-ons are marching in the street because climate change is apparently going to end us all, despite the fact that we are 1% of the world's problem. That I go marching on the Chinese embassy. No, of course not. That would be offensive. That would be rude. Let alone everyone has to finish year 12. Everyone has to go to university. And then surprise, surprise, they all come out and they just keep voting to the left, voting to the left, voting. I know that's the game. And we all fall for the idea that it's about, ABCs. But for those of us that do believe that school is about the ABCs, can we get that right before we start referring to everybody? Little learners, please. I have to bite my tongue often when I see some of this stuff in action. But fair dinkum, you've got to, don't be aggressive, don't be rude. But if you see this stuff happening at your kid or your grandkid's school, no confrontation, just say, hey, sorry, about this, can I just check, what do you call the kids? Do you call the kids boys and girls? Because otherwise, if all they hear from is the people who believe we must change it all, well, then the rest of us are just going to be left behind. So pipe up, don't be offensive though. Couple of quick things to mention here. Queensland, pay attention because total fire ban next couple of days, basically from now until the end of the long weekend. Have a look where this thing's going to stretch from, though. The total fire ban is basically going to rip right across the New South Wales-Queensland border, which obviously means a little further down the problems in northern New South Wales, but let's basically say from the Gold Coast all the way out, way past Toowoomba, into the Darling Downs, Gympie, Sunshine Coast, Caboolture and Brisbane. Lots of things. So if your plan is to be, dancing in Redcliffe till dawn, you will still also be in a scenario where you are going to be in a total fire ban. So enjoy the dance moves, but no naked fames, please. Here's in part what they had to say today in and around the Toowoomba area.
Everything is ready to burn, and we have seen a significant number of fires over the last weekend. No campfires, no fireplaces, barbecues, and any sort of fully contained vessel is suitable, but it must be supervised at all times.
All right, and as you were working hard, and now it's Wednesday night, you can start working for yourself. Keep a little bit of the money. Remember, Monday, Tuesday, and a bit into today, depending on how much you earn, you're just paying tax to pay for some of these people, of course, who represent us in the federal parliament, and the staffers that are there to make them look like heroes on social media, like the Green. I hope she's pulled over, because if she was doing that at a set of traffic lights... And then there's Amanda Rishworth. This person is a cabinet minister.
This is Red Flag, Green Flag with Amanda.
Make it really care-related.
Medicare Edition.
Sprained my ankle playing sport.
Green flag.
Who are they talking to? Honestly, you know, if you remember Romper Room, the sort of Miss Helena, I see Jeff and I see Jenny, or all the other versions of the names they have today. Honestly, it's just such baby talk. But apparently this is what people are eating up. Well, I think people are smarter than that, but still. Again, one of the Greens talking down to Australians like they are teenage boys.
As if Ford is life. We're back Thursday, the 2nd of October.
Go away, please.